you ready for a story?
Yeah.
Are you sure you're ready for a story?
Yeah.
Are you sure you're sure?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to tell you a wee story, and it's a lovely story. It's one of my favourite stories because I come from Scotland. My background is Scottish and Irish, but when I got this story when I was little, it was the Scottish version, and then I came to Ireland and I got the Irish version, and then later on I learned there was another Irish version. So some of you will be familiar with the story, but then it will change and you'll be like, oh, okay. And what I also do is I drink water a lot, okay? Hydrate. This is a story about Oisin, okay? And Oisin is the son of Fionn McCool, and Fionn McCool is the captain of the Fianna. And the Fianna, for anybody who doesn't know, the Fianna Warriors, you go back in history a long, long time ago in Ireland, and you also got in Scotland, the Fianna Warriors, and they were kind of like kind of Marvel comic superhero things, okay? They'd be like fights, and it'd be one of them against 1 million people, and they just like beat the shit out of them. So like, okay. So that was the Fianna, and they were kind of very violent, and they had big weapons, and their hair stuck out, and all that kind of thing. But the other thing with the Fianna Warriors was they weren't just violent. They were also kind of arbitrators as well. The idea was that they would stop fights happening. Okay, so if there was a fight threatening, they'd be kind of going in there to try and stop it, and all that kind of stuff. So they were kind of keeping the peace. But when necessary, they could also be deeply and profoundly, psychotically violent. Okay, and that was their thing. And of all the Fianna, we had Fionn McCool was the captain of the Fianna. And then he had a relationship with a deer, which is fine because that was okay then. And they had a little child who's Oisin, which means little deer. Okay. So Oisin grew up. The deer wasn't a deer; it was one of the kind of magical folk that got a spell on them. Okay. So Oisin, his son, his story's about, had a little bit of the magic blood in him. Okay. It wasn't quite mortally Oisin; he had a little bit of the magic blood in him. So he was a little bit different from the other Fianna Warriors. But he was as psychotically violent as them as well, okay? I mean, if there was fights, he'd get out there with his axe, and he'd stick it in somebody, and he'd chop their head off and get a big sword. He loved the violence, okay? He was great for the violence, but he was different. He was a wee bit different from the other lads, because he loved the violence as well, but they were all kind of muscles, like, but he was kind of tall and willowy, and kind of like myself, kind of, with more teeth and a bit thinner. And he also, this kind of ethereal side, he loved writing poetry. He was into the poetry. And this is fine, you can write poetry or you can be fighting. But you shouldn't be doing them at the same time. It's just like a demarcation thing, you know. It's very disrespectful if you've got your big axe there and you're fighting, you go, and you see someone, you go to chop their head off, and you get the big axe, you go, and you stick the axe in their head, and you're about to kill them, and you stop! Because there's a wee bird in a tree. And you get your quill and your bit of parch and you're a wee moving poem. Oh, dearie me. There's a wee bird in a tree. And here's me killing me. Oh, dearie me. And he's finished a wee poem. Then, blood squishing everywhere. Now, so folk would get a bit annoyed with him. You know, please, disrespectful. You're trying to kill me. Don't be writing fucking poems in the middle of it. So that kind of was a wee quirk. But apart from that, everybody loved him because he was ethereal and beautiful and he looked like himself, and they all loved him anyway. But he had that wee quirk which sometimes annoyed the fellow Fianna Warriors. Now what the young Fianna used to do in the summer is they would go off out hunting. Okay, they would take the summer off and go hunting. They'd hunt their own food. This would kind of build up their martial skills and all this, okay? And I think their wives and husbands would be quite happy getting rid of them. Go and do your out there, whatever. So they'd go and they'd fight and they'd find boar and deer and eat them out in the wilds. And they'd live in the wilds as well. So at the point of this story, Oisin's out, the young Fianna Warriors, they're out in the wilds, they're hunting, and they catch a big heap of deer. They've got a lot of deer. And they take the deer to a lake. and they're kind of stripping the deer, they're cutting the meat off the bone and chopping them up, and it's gory work, and there's flies everywhere, and there's intestines everywhere, and it's all kind of very messy. And they're working away, and as they're working away, the heat's there, the flies there, the smell's there, they hear a sound. And it's a beautiful sound they hear, and it's singing, and it's the most angelic singing ever. It's rising and falling, and suddenly these lads are kind of feel themselves floating in this beautiful, beautiful song. So they kind of turned and they looked, and at the end of the lake there was a big stone at the end of the lake, and on the stone you could see a maid. She had her back turned to them. She could just see her long hair and her maidly shape sat there, and she was singing, trilling away. Oh, oh, oh. And they were all moved by this. So they all kind of ran down to where the big boulder was, and they called out, "Maid, maid, turn around and sing at us. Turn towards us, maid." So the maid who was singing beautifully, she turned around. Ah, this is how maids sing in Ireland. Ah, and she turned around, and they all went, "Oh!" Because the maid had the head of a pig. And the Fina warrior were like, "Oh, gee, oh my goodness." And they all turned away disgusted. Except, of course, for Oisin. Because Oisin, he wasn't bothered with the pig head. He just loved the beauty of her singing and the voice of her. And he said, "Oh, thank you." He said, "This singing is beautiful." And the pig head went, "Oh, I'll sing you some more," like he says. And so he kind of lay on the grass there, and he lay down, and she began to sing. And when she sang, her voice was beautiful. There was no snorts or grunts. She sang beautifully. And Oisin lay there and listened to the sound of her singing. It was like floating on this beautiful, beautiful ocean of sound, and he's listening. But the other Fina warrior are like, no, pig-headed woman, no way. So they're all annoyed. So they leave. And they decide they're going to punish Oisin. And the way they decide to punish him is they steal his motorbike. And then, after that, they decide what they're going to do is they're going to leave the rest of the deer to be chopped up. They're going to leave the rest of it there, so Oisin's going to have to chop up the deer by himself. So they all head back to camp, and Oisin's on the grass there, listening to the singing, and finally the singing finishes. Oh, and Oisin says, thank you for the beautiful singing. I have to go now and chop things up." And he went back to the top of the lake. And his friends had gone, and there was a big pile of deer still to be chopped up. So he gets out his knife and he begins chopping up the deer. So he's chopping into the meat of them, and he's chopping into the bone of them, and he's opening them up, and there's a viscera everywhere, and it's all gory, disgusting work, and the smell of it, and the flies. And he's working away. He wants the deer all chopped up. And he's working away. He looks up, and there is the pig-headed maid, sashaying. I've got to try that lady. She's sashaying. Again, this is what we do in Ireland. And she sashayed down to where he was. And she looked at him, she said, "Thank you." He went, "For what?" "For listening to my songs." He went, "Oh, no worries, your singing's beautiful." She went, "Maybe I can help you. I'll help you chop up the meat." He went, "Okay." So he gave her a big knife, and she chopped into the meat as well. Oh, she was great for the chopping and rendering and bits of meat flying everywhere. She had a great time chopping things up. So they're chopping away and chopping away. And the sun is rising, it's getting very hot. So you get the buzz of the flies, you get the reek of the blood and shit and everything. It's smelling, it's minging, and they're chopping away and they're pulling things out. And then it's all done, the work is all done. And Oisin now looks at himself and he's covered in gore and blood. So of course he has to clean himself. So he disrobes and steps into the lake naked. He steps in there, and the pig-headed lady, she's kind of standing there, and she goes, and then she did that thing that maidens do, but they say they don't do, but I'm telling you they sometimes do. She kind of went, "Oh, it's very hot, and I need to cool down. And she bent down to waft the air onto her body, which beneath her little dress was also naked. So Oisin's there in the water, he's splashing, he looks around and he goes, huh. And he stops, and she's kind of like this, and he's like that. And he goes, maid, I'm a bit confused. Why? Well, you've got the body of a goddess, but your head, it's, different. And she goes, oh, she said, well, let me tell you my story. I said, okay. So she got a bottle of water, took a drink, began to tell her story. And she said, my name is Neve. And she began to tell the story, but the story was so beautiful and mesmerising that soon enough, Oisin couldn't hear the grunts and the snorts, he just heard the wonder of the tale. And the tale was this. She said, my name is Neve, and I come from Oak, the land of the ever young, the land beyond topography, beyond the oceans, way out there in the west. I come from there. And my father is the king of Oak. And I grew up there from a wee girl to a young woman. And I was a princess there, Princess Neve. And I was the most beautiful woman on the island. But then a day came. And the druid was in with us. And there was a ceremony going on. And my king, my father, he said to the druid, Druid, tell me, will the day ever come when a man can take my throne? And the druid said, the only man that can take your throne is the man who marries your beautiful daughter, Princess Neve. At which my father, who went into a rage, he grabbed the staff off the druid, and the next thing he smacked me with it. And I fell to the ground, and everybody around gasped. And I ran to my room, and I looked in my mirror, and I saw that my face had changed into the face of a pig. And the druid came then. And the druid came and I said, Druid, change me back. And the druid said, I can't. Your father's the king. He has far more powerful magic than I. He has turned your face into the face of the pig. There is nothing I can do. And I was so angry. I said, you must change me back. You must change me back into a beautiful princess again. And the druid said, well, I can't change you. But maybe there's something that can help. And I said, what is that? And the druid said, take yourself to a place called Ireland. And when you get to Ireland, find a young warrior called Oisin. And if Oisin will agree to lay with you, as husband doth lay with wife, then you will get your beauty back. And that, Oisin, is why I'm here today. And Oisin kind of looked at her, and he's in the water, naked, and she's naked now as well. And he went, grand soul. Kind of blocks this part out. Does his duty for Ireland. And they doffed a bit more, and a lot of doffing. Okay, they doffed a lot. It's sex, okay, it's sex. They doffed. And in the middle of the doffing, suddenly, when they were doffing, Neve cried out that kind of, oh, and as she cried out, her face rippled, and her face changed. And she got on her bike, she was so excited, still naked, and ran about the bike, then came back to her changed face, and of course, Oisin, he's all happy as well, he's kind of lying there, and there's heat coming off their bodies, they're lying there naked, she's now beautiful again, Oisin's lying there, and he's like, I'm the man. I can make a pig-headed maiden beautiful, just with my body. So now they're lying there, they're doffed out, the steam's coming off them, like a two pair of rotten pigs, they're lying there, they're very happy. She's beautiful again, he's beautiful anyway, and they're kind of lying there, and she looks at them and she says, Oisin, now that we've laid together, come with me to Tirnanog. You let us live together as husband and wife. And Oisin's up for anything. Ah, grand so. Yeah, sure. How do we get there, he says. She says, don't worry about it. It's far away, it's a magical place, it's a land never young, but you know what? I've got a magic horse. And she kind of whistles, and a big white horse appears. And she kind of, well, she put her clothes on first, then she jumped on the horse, and he jumped on as well. And the horse galloped and galloped and galloped. And it galloped across the west of Ireland, it came to the very ocean's edge, and it leapt up onto a wave. And then the horse leapt from one wave to the next wave to the next wave, and on it leapt until it came to Tirnanog. And when it got to Tirnanog, Niamh and Oisin came off the horse. And oh my goodness, what a beautiful world it was. There was great flowers, golden and silver and red and blue flowers with pollen filling the air. There was people everywhere singing songs, beautiful songs. And the sky was that beautiful way. If you're ever up in Connemara, it's been raining, and the rain stops, and there's a beautiful blue in the sky. That was the sky over Tirnanog. So it's beautiful. And now Oisin's there with Niamh, and he's very content. And so they live there, and they lay there, and they doth there, and they have a nice time, and things are fine. And time goes by, and Oisin's happy enough, but he's missing Ireland, he's missing his fellow Fina, he's missing his family. So one day, he turns to Niamh and he says, Niamh, I need to go back to Ireland. And she looked at him and she said, Oisin, you cannot go back to Ireland. Ireland has changed. No, he says, you don't understand, I need to go back. I'm missing my family. Every day I'm away from them. It's like a weight on my heart. It's a weight on my heart. I miss my family so, and my friends, and my country so. This weight is on me, and I'm feared that the weight will get so great my heart will break, and then how could I love you, Niamh? I must go back to Ireland, just for the smallest visit. And so Niamh looked at him and said, Oisin, I tell you what, go back to Ireland, but I'm telling you now, you will find it has changed utterly. And I'll tell you what, I'll give you my white horse. My white horse will take you to Ireland, but you must promise me to stay on the horse. Never come off the horse. Never touch the soil of Ireland. For the moment you touch the soil of Ireland, our time together is done, and we will never embrace again. And Oisin said, don't worry, Niamh, I love you so much. I will stay on the horse, and I will return to you. So she called it the big white horse, and of course Oisin got on the big white horse. And the horse leapt on the wave, on one wave, and the next wave, and the next wave, and it took him all the way back to Ireland. When he got back to Ireland, he was on the horse and he looked around, and it was strange, because Ireland seemed somehow reduced. It seemed duller. It seemed less majestic. And he was on the horse and he was going about trying to find a familiar place for him, and he couldn't find anywhere. And it all seemed a bit strange. And then he remembered, as a Fina warrior, if a Fina warrior is ever lost, all they have to do is find a particular valley, and in that valley is a magic horn, and if you blow that horn, all the other Fina will come and rescue you. So that's what Oisin set out to do. They now wandered around this strangely reduced island, and eventually came to a valley, and it was the valley, he recognised the valley that had the horn in it. And there was the horse, and in the middle of the valley was a huge stone. And so he got the horse over to he trotted over the horse, and he's looking at the stone. And as he's looking at the stone, a wee farmer comes by. And Oisin calls to the farmer and says, Farmer, could you lift that boulder for me? I can't get off my horse, could you lift the boulder for me? And the farmer looks at this tall youth on a big horse and he goes, no, I'm a farmer and I've got a bad back. And I don't lift boulders. No, lift it yourself. Oisin went, okay. So he held tightly onto the horse and he leaned over, and with one hand he scooped up this massive boulder and he threw it in the air. And there was left behind a big hole. And in the middle of the hole was a horn. And so he said to the farmer, pick up that horn and give it to me. And the farmer went, oh no, I can feel there's magic coming off that. I don't want involved in this, not at all, not at all. So Oisin said, I'll pick it up myself. So he held on the horse tight, and he reached down to get the horn, and he slipped. He slipped and he fell from the horse, and he touched the soil of Ireland. And he lay there. And as he lay there on the soil of Ireland, suddenly he could feel himself getting weaker and weaker. And he held his hand up to himself, and his hand was beginning to twist and bend. And he could feel his breath getting more shallow, and his eyesight was beginning to fail. And he did not know what was going on with himself. He suddenly felt older and older. And the wee farmer who's standing there, who's like, oh, fuck's sake, oh my God, what's that about? Big tall man, suddenly shrinking and shrinking. He's watching him shrinking and getting smaller and all withered and twisted like he's hundreds of years old. And the wee farmer does what anybody does in that kind of situation. He ran away. Oh, Instagram picture, hashtag I'm off. And he ran. And he ran until he got to a wise man. And the wise man saw him. The wise man said, you look perturbed. Oh, he said, what I've seen, there was a giant youth on a big horse, and he fell off on the ground, and he began to shrink and twist. And it looks like he's hundreds of years old. And the wise man said, interesting. Hashtag interesting. Take me to, I must see this, take me. So the farmer took the wise man down to where Oisin lay. And the wise man came over. And there's the hole, and there's the horn, and he's looking, and he's looking, and he's looking, and he bends down, and he's looking at this twisted wee form. He says, who are you? And the wee twisted form says, my name is Oisin. My name is Oisin. I'm the son of Fionn McCool, the captain of the Fina. And the wise man says, the who? And Oisin says, the Fina. The great warriors have protected Ireland. And the wise man scratched his head and said, the Fina. I think I've heard of them. Some folk say they lived hundreds and hundreds of years ago, but really they're just the things of fairy stories. And Oisin said, no, he said. The Fina were real. I was one of the Fina warriors. I defended Ireland so much in my youth, and I would defend it again if I had my strength back. And so the wise man looked at him. He said, well, let me tell you my story. My name is Patrick. And I've come to Ireland to bring Christianity to the country. Because they're all out there and they're drinking and fornicating and all that kind of stuff. And I'm trying to ban that. So I'm over here and I'm making them all Christian. And every day, me and my Christian followers, we build a wee church in a valley near here. But every night a monster comes and destroys our little church. If you truly are who you say you are, one of these Fina warriors, I will give you your strength back if you promise to defend my church. And Oisin said, I have defended Ireland so many times before, I would be honoured now to defend her church. So Patrick bent down and he touched Oisin and blessed him. And the minute he touched Oisin, suddenly Oisin could feel his strength coming back, and his blood was moving faster, and his heart was beating faster, his eyesight was fresh, and his hands were getting stronger, the muscles were all peeling on him, and suddenly he was tall and beautiful, and he stood up and he towered over Patrick, and he towered over the farmer, and he stood there, and he picked up his sword, and he said, show me your church. So Patrick took him. And Patrick took him to the next valley, and in the next valley was one of those little stone churches. You get them all around Scotland Island, the wee early Christian churches, little church. This is the church, he said. We built it this morning. The monster will come tonight. And Oisin said, have no fear. I will defeat the monster. So Patrick, he said, fine, and he left, and the farmer left, they all left, and Oisin was now left alone standing in front of this church, okay? And he was standing there, and he had his sword, and he had his strength, and he had his youth back. And he waited. And the sky, the sun rose, and the sun fell, and the stars came out. It was a beautiful night. And still Oisin waited. And then in the middle of the night he heard a grunting and a snorting. And he looked in the distance and he could see a figure. And he could see red eyes that were really high up. And as he stared and stared, he realised he was looking at a giant bull. A bull 50 feet high. And it was snorting. And it was snorting and it was pawing the ground. And then it began to run. And it began running toward the church. And it bent down so its horns were aimed at the church. And as it ran, the whole country trembled. It trembled like an earthquake. And this huge monster was running towards the church. And it got nearer and nearer and nearer. And Oisin, well, you know, Oisin was a Fianna warrior. He wasn't bothered at all. He just took his breath. And he paused. And the giant bull came up so close to him. And then he leapt aside. And he grabbed his sword. And he leapt at the bull. And so began the very last battle ever fought in Ireland by one of the Fianna warriors. The battle of Oisin and the giant bull. And it was a savage affair. Sometimes a bull would get the better of Oisin and it would throw him into the air, and Oisin would come tumbling down, he'd smack into the ground, and suddenly rocks would throw him, there'd be a new mountain. Other times he'd manage to get the bull, he'd wrestle the bull, throw the bull, and it would scoop out the ground and a valley would open up. And they were roaring at each other. And his horns were clashing against the swords. They were bellowing and shouting. The whole of the country shook. The sparks were going. And all around Ireland, people were hit. They could hear this terrible, terrible battle going on. And the sparks and the roars of it. But of course, the bull was a magical creature. And Oisin, for all he was strong and youthful, well, he was mortal. And he grew tired. And eventually the night was dying, and the sun was coming up, and Oisin was now exhausted. And he tripped, and he managed to just keep himself standing up, and the bull saw its chance. And the bull bent down, and it ran towards Oisin with its great horns. And the horns were aimed at Oisin's gut. But just as the horns were about to pierce him, Oisin got his strength back, one last bit of strength. He leapt aside, he got his sword, and he plunged it into the side of the bull and pierced its heart. And a great gout of blood exploded out, and the bull screamed in agony, and it tumbled to the ground. It tumbled to the ground, and it breathed its last. And the monster bull was dead. Now Oisin, well, he's a Fianna warrior. He's just killed his enemy, okay? So he has to do that thing that Fianna warriors have to do. So he kind of raises his arms and he goes, "Ah!" And the whole of Ireland shook, and the trees shook, trees would fall down, buildings would fall down. "Ah!" And then when he finished roaring, he stopped. And he cleaned his sword, he lay down on the ground, and he slept like a baby. Very content. Now Patrick and his fellow followers, fellow Christians, had heard all this commotion during the night. They'd heard the great roaring. They came into the valley to see what had happened. And the first thing that they saw was that their church was still standing. And they looked at their church, and then beyond the church they saw the great shape of the dead bull. And they came closer and closer. Patrick and his followers, now they're all looking about. And then they saw Oisin. And Oisin's lying there, sleeping, like a wee baby. He's quite content, he's lying there. And Oisin's lying there, and Patrick's looking at him, he's looking at his followers. And then Patrick spoke. And he said to his followers, no. There's no room in Ireland for one as strong as this. And as Oisin slept, Patrick bent down and took his blessing of him. And in his dreams, Oisin felt it, a sudden chill, and he opened his eyes, and he looked, and he could see Patrick and his followers all around him. And he looked at his hands, and his hands were twisting again, and his body was shrinking, and his heart was slowing. And Oisin realised he was aging again. He was getting older and older, and his eyesight was going, and his breath was getting shallower. And Oisin knew that he was dying. And as he lay there dying, he spoke. He said, "My name is Oisin. I'm the son of Fionn McCool, the captain of the Fianna. And he didn't just give his name, he began to talk about the funeral. He talked about all the great heroes, all the great men, the great women, all the great battles, all the great loves, all the great treacheries, all the great glories. He spoke everything. And Patrick was so struck by this, he called his scribe, and the scribe wrote down every single word that dying Oisin spoke. And so it was. Of all the Fianna warriors, it was Oisin that achieved the greatest thing. For it was Oisin, with his dying breath, who made sure all those stories of wonder and glory, all those stories would live on and on and on to the very last tick and tock of time itself.